Begin the card Daf Mesechtes Bava Metzia Daf Lamed Daled. Begin 15 lines down at the top of the Yomid by the two dots, where the Gemara continues to explain the halacha of our previous mission, which we opened up this parak, the third parak Hamafkid, discussing the laws of a shomer, specifically regarding the halacha of kefil, which is that if the shomer decides that he's going to pay, and he doesn't want to swear to let himself off the hook, so then when they ultimately find the ganav, that payment is made to the shomer and not to the original owner, because he already paid it, and he, as we explained on the top of the summit in the previous stuff, that he already acquired it when it's going to be stolen, that kefil was sold to him. And the Gemara is going to explain and qualify this halacha that he's willing to pay, possibly even if he doesn't actually pay it, he'll still be able to acquire the kefil, and the shomer will get the kefil, not the owner. Turn to today's daf. Throughout the entire world. So we're going to discuss in today's daf are shiloim. The Mishnah said if the shomer wants to pay, but he doesn't want to swear to let himself off the hook. So misham tashumi kefil. So when the ganav pays a kefil, it's lamisha b'kol netzos to whoever deposited by. In other words, it's by the shomer. The Gemara qualifies a bigger chiddush. Says kivin she'am harin misham. Even if he doesn't pay, he says I will pay. Av bishlei shilim ba'il makan the kefila. The owner still is going to transfer the funds of the kefil to the shomer. Now, if a shomer chinam or a shomer salchar, once he says I'm negligent, so therefore he's incriminating himself, he's making himself liable. Basically, I'm going to pay. So already the owner transfers the kefil to the shomer. Now the question, however, becomes regarding a shayil for a few different reasons. But a shayil kol ana shaloi, so possibly that the owner would not transfer the kefil to the shayil. Then the Gemara gets into a bunch of different questions. What happens if the owner or the shomer or both were no longer alive? Do the heirs of the shomer get the kefil? Or do you say it's only to the people who he said you did me a favor and you watched it for me, therefore he's makna the kefil, but if regarding the children it wouldn't be like that? What happens if one makes a partial payment? Does he get a partial kefil, or would it be only if you pay him the whole thing? And also the Gemara ends off by saying that mashpia neisir shavua, even if a guy is willing to pay, he still has to swear she'ein b'shusay, that the item that he's watching, he says was stolen. He's like, but I'll pay for it, I'm not going to swear. We make him swear that it's not in his possession because he really wanted it. He likes the item that he was watching. He says, I'll pay for it. But really, he still has it. So we have to make him swear that it's not in his possession. And the Gemara, the last thing that which goes into the next stuff is if someone lends his friend money on collateral and then the guy the lender loses the security, and now there's a whole discussion about, well, how much was the security worth? Who's the claimant, who's the defendant, and if it's a Maidu Mixes or it's a Kaifar Kol, regarding if there's going to be a shvur relating to that security that was lost. So begin the current Daf Lamed Daled, 15 lines down at the top of the Yomid. The Mishnah told us that Shileim that if the Shomer voluntarily paid for the Pekadon rather than swear to be exempt, and the Ganav was then discovered, the Shomer gets back the keren that he paid, and he also gets the additional kefil and Dal Vehei. As the Gemara explains, because the Bailim are makna like Kefeilim. The owner grants the kefil and the dal v'hei to the shomer for his generosity in paying for the pekadon, as we explained in the previous stuff. Now, however, the Gemara further qualifies this teaching and says, says, we didn't say that when you say pay, it means literally you have to pay, and only then do you get the kefil. If the shomer says, I will pay, even though he didn't yet pay, and they catch the ganav, the kefil is going to go to the shomer and not to the baila. Says Gemara, really? No, we're doing a Mishnah that says, the words of the Mishnah were, if a guy pays and he doesn't want to swear, says the Mishnah, oh, then he's going to get the kefil. That sounds like shilam in, only if he pays. But if he doesn't actually pay, no, he's not going to get it. Says Gemara, yeah, but look at the next words. The next case of the Mishnah was the other way. If he swears and he doesn't want to pay, oh, then he's not going to get the kefil. That sounds like temed l'ratza. It says he doesn't want to pay. Haratza, if he wants to, even though he didn't pay, then he does get it. So the Gemara says, as we oftentimes say in the Gemara when there's contradictory inferences, we say, okay, so you obviously cannot infer from that. Taisa discusses as why sometimes we seem to say that when they're contradictory, we say that it's actually the Sefer's interpreting the Reisha. But Al-Kapan, Gemara is saying that, yeah, you can't infer either way, and it doesn't indicate one way or the other. But says the Gemara, we have a Bryce that says, like Rabbi Yechanan's qualification, that you don't have to actually pay. It's enough to say, I want to pay, and then you'll get the kefil. Because the Bryce says like this: if someone rents a cow from his friend, v'nigneva, that gets stolen. Now, although, Rashi points out, a seicher, a renter, is actually liable for theft and for loss, if it gets lost, but the truth is, if he wanted to lie and to swear that it was an oinus, is beyond his control, he would have been exempt by swearing. So therefore, the chiddush of the brisa is that when v'amar halah, when the seicher says that it was stolen and he's incriminating himself for the principal, so if he says hareini mishalim, I'm gonna pay, but the primary thing is the words hareini mishalim, I will pay. He's not paying yet. He says I will pay. I'm not gonna. I could lie. I could swear that it's oinus. I'm not. I'm gonna pay. Then and then they find the thief. The kefil is acquired, is transferred to the shemer, and misham tashlumi kefil is seicher. The kefil is paid to the seicher. You see Rabbi Yochanan's halacha. Forget about the chiddush, what the bride is coming to say, which is that even though he's a seicher, he'd be chai, but ultimately he could exempt himself by swearing. But the point is that we're trying to bring a raya to Rabbi Yochanan that we see that just Omar halah harin misham, just saying I will pay, already transfers the kefil to the seicher, as Rabbi Yochanan had said. You don't have to actually pay. And so too, Amra Papa. Now, Rav Papa is going on the halacha of the liability and the exemptions of what we call the Dal Shaiman. There's 4 types of custodians mentioned in the Torah, which the Gemara later on, Perak HaShol of Tzadik Dal Amud Beis, learns that from Sukkim, that a Shemer Chinam, an unpaid custodian, he swears on everything. As long as he was negligent, he doesn't have to pay. The Shoyal, the borrower, on the other hand, has to pay for everything. The Neisisacher and the Seicher, a guy who's getting paid to watch, or a renter, they're exempt from Einsin, but they're liable if it's a Gneva and or Aveda. Now, a Shoyal would be patur only if what's called Mesa Machmas Malacha. If it died because of the work that it's meant for, where the borrower says to the lender, says, this is what you lent it for me, not to just keep it in the barn. He obviously wanted me to do something with it. And that if it dies through that, that's not the liability of the Shoyal. And that says a papa like this. He says, Shoymer Chinam, the unpaid custodian, came in Sha'amar Pashati. As long as he just says, I was negligent, which is incriminating himself, saying he has to pay, this is like Rabbi Yochanan, that you're going to already transfer the kefil to the Shoymer Chinam, because the boy, if he wanted to, he could have exempted himself by saying it was stolen. So by saying it was Pshia, and he's being mechayiv himself, so the owner is gracious, is grateful for that, and therefore he transfers him the kefil. So to Shemes Acher, the paid custodian, once he says it was stolen, so the owner transfers the kefil to him, because the if he wanted to put the nafshi b'shvur meisa, he could have exempted himself by saying it was noinus, that it broke or it died, which he would be exempt for. So by incriminating himself, the owner again is grateful, and he says, you know what? If we find the ganav, you'll get the kefil. Shayil, a borrower, Shaimer, he says, Harid Misham, I'm going to pay. Here says Rav Papa, Loi Makn Loi Kefela. No, the owner does not transfer the kefil to him. Because how exactly was he supposed to exempt himself, that I should be grateful for you, that you're not trying to get yourself out of it? The only way would be, you could have said, when you were doing the work with it, in its work, it stopped functioning, it broke, and it died as you're doing the work. For something to die because of the work that it usually does is not a common thing, and therefore for that I don't have to be grateful for you, and therefore that the owner is not going to transfer the kefil, and therefore he's not going to get the kefil. That's one version of Rav Papa. But Ikeda Amri, that those that say a different version, Amri Rav Papa, that Rav Papa actually says shoyel nami. No, actually a shoyel also. Once he says that I will pay, we do transfer the kefil to him. If he wants to, the second version holds that it is someone that you could have exempted yourself. He could have let himself off the hook by saying it died because of the work, and you didn't. So I'm grateful, and therefore you're going to get the kefil as long as you say you're going to pay. Fine. Now, Amalei Rav Zvid. So there was 2 versions of Rav Papa. Now the Gemara introduces Rav Zvid's teaching. He says, Hochem Abai, he says, this is what Abai says. Shoyel, a borrower, that he does not get the kefil, ad sheyishalim. He has to actually pay, and then when he pays, and then you find the ganav, okay, then he'll get the kefil. My time, what's the reason? Why does he have to pay and everyone else is enough just to say I will pay? Because since all the benefit is the borrower's, because he gets to use the guy's wind blower, snow blower, whatever blower he's, leaf blower, whatever he's using, without any payment. This guy's just using it. That's what a shayl is. So bedibura, with just words of, oh Max, I'll pay for it. Like maknile, the owner is not going to transfer to him the kefela, the kefil, because that's not so great of you to do that. Because this was something that, of course, it's your responsibility to calm me down. Because I lent it to you for free. So that's not something that I'm grateful for. If you actually pay, okay, that I'm grateful for, and then you'll get the kefil. That's how Rav Zvid said over in the name of Abaya. And Tanya Kabbalah said, Rav Zvid, we have a brayso that says like Rav Zvid, that a shayl is not enough to say I'm going to pay. You have to actually pay, and then you get the kefil. As the brayso says, "Hashayl pada mechaveda benignav." If someone borrows a cow from his friend and it gets stolen, and the borrower goes before and quickly he goes and he pays to the guy who lent it to him. So you see, it says v'shilem, as he paid. Then they find the thief. Oh, and then they're going to pay kefil to the shayl. So you see, like Rav Zvid's teaching of Abaya, that by a shayl it's not enough to say I will pay. You have to actually pay, and then you get the kefil. But now the Gemara says that lalishna kamadira papa. There were two versions of papa, if you recall, regarding how to explain the halacha of a shayl. One teaching said that by a shayl that says I'm going to pay, we're not maknit him the kefil because the mesa machmas malacha is not common. The second verse said no, a shayl also, since he says I'm going to pay, the maknit him the kefil. So now we just quote a teaching of Rav Zvid that we have a brayso that says like that says that a shayl doesn't get until he pays. So it says the Gemara like this. According to the first version of Papa, this brayso that's like Rav Zvid is sure not a refutation to say, oh, since the reason of Rav Papa was because that really he should not really have let himself off the hook, because maybe to say that it died because the work is not common. So maybe even if the shayl goes and pays for it, still Rav Papa would hold that he should not get the kefil, which would be difficult on Rav Papa, because the brayso says that he will get the kefil. No, that's not a refutation of the first version, because he could tell you, I only said that even though he said I'm going to pay, but I didn't say even if he pays. The brayso was saying if the shayl pays, I'll get the kefil. First version of Papa says, I only said that if he says he's going to pay, he's not going to get it. But if he actually pays like a tatala, then he'll get it. So according to the first version of Papa, the brayso is not a refutation. But says the Gemara, shall we say that the second version of Papa should be a refutation because the brayso said that when the shayl pays, then he gets the kefil. According to the second version of Papa, the shayl is no different than all the other shaymim, that if he just says I'm going to pay, he gets it. Here by shayl, it doesn't say that. It says pay. So l'chayra, it would be a refutation of the second version of Papa. So on that Amlachar Papa, you'd say it's not a refutation. Mi lima misnitin. Do you think that this brayso is stronger than our Mishnah? Diktani shilem. The Mishnah said shilem. V'kimna. And if you recall, we started off today's daf with Rabbi Yechanan's qualification. That what did Rabbi Yechanan say? He said ba'omar. He said that what does it mean shilem alaretz lishava? So it doesn't mean actually pay. It means he said he's going to pay. Okay, ba'omar. Here also by the brayso it says that the shayl when he paid doesn't mean literally pay. It means he said. So it's not refuting what I said. But says the Gemara, midam is a comparable. Hasam in the Mishnah like katani kidim. It doesn't say the word kidim. Hacha katani kidim. Kidim sounds like he went. What do you mean he went early? What to do what? Doesn't it mean to pay? No, it says the Gemara, my kidim hama. He just went right away and he says he walks up there and says, I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to take full responsibility, and that would be enough. But the Gemara says, wait a second. But the fact that we learned in the brayso, Gabi Seicher, when it talks about the Seicher, the renter, it says V'omar, as we had quoted before when we said Tani Kavased Rabbi Yechanan, we said that he says, which is Rabbi Yechanan's teaching, it's enough to say. But V'gabi Shoyel Kidem, but by Shoyel it says that he went first and he paid. When we said the Tani Kavased Rabbi Zvid, Shmamino Dafka Tani would seem to be that it's precise that Kidem V'shilem then it doesn't say va'amar, which seems to indicate that the shoyl has to pay. Says no, midi gabe dodi tanya. You think these prices were taught together? This was different prices. So if it's one price switching the terminologies, that would seem to indicate. But if not, that doesn't say anything because our Mishnah said shilam, and it doesn't mean literally pay. But the Gemara says that actually they rejected his answer because Shailinu, the Bnei Yeshiva asked Litanoi, those who were teaching the brises of the Beir B'chia or the Beir B'isha, which those are the authoritative brises, as the Gemara says in general, like in Chul Daf Kuf Mem Aleph, any brise that was not taught in the Yeshiva B'isha B'chia, you cannot ask from in the Beis Medrash. But when the authoritative brises they asked, they said Gabe Adoditan, they actually were taught together. So by Seicher it says Va'amar, and by Shayil it says Kodim V'shilin. So the change of the terminology would seem to indicate not like the second version of Rav Papa, that actually by Shayil it's not enough, rather like Rabbi Zvid, it's not enough to say I'm going to pay. You actually would have to go ahead and pay, and only then would you get the kefir. Now the Gemara says Pshita, relating to these teachings, what happens if, now the Gemara has a list of different questions. What happens if Amar Ein Mishal? The guy says, I'm not going to pay. And then he says, I'm going to pay. So the Gemara takes that for granted. How come Ein Mishal? At the end of the day, he says, I will pay, and therefore, the owner will transfer to him the kefil. But we have the following questions, a whole list of questions. Amar Ein Mishal, what happens if the guy says, I will pay? Okay, as we continue to Mid Beis, and then he says, I'm not paying. What's the halacha? So what's the Gemara's question? So the Gemara explains. Do we say Mahad Kahadir Bey? Okay, he's retracting, he's backing out, and therefore obviously he's not going to get the kefil. Maybe no, he's maintaining his position that he's going to pay. He's just pushing him off. He didn't retract from his commitment, he's stalling for time. And therefore maybe you would still say that the owner would be maknat him the kefil. That's one question. Another question. Let's say the guy says, I'm going to pay. But Umeis, he doesn't get the ability to pay until he dies. Then his children say, Einon Mishalmim, we're not going to pay. What's the halachas? What's the question? So the Gemara explains. Do we say, the children, the heirs, they're retracting. Are they retracting? Okay, forget it. Your father was watching this thing for me and it was stolen. If we catch the gun, if you're not getting the kefir because you guys are not willing to pay. No, they're going to maintain their father's position. They're just, again, stalling for time, but they're not going to back up on their father's commitment. What's the halach over there? Another question. Shilmu banim. What happens if the father didn't get a chance to say, I'm going to pay until he dies? So the children come along and they say they pay. They say they're going to pay or they pay. What's the halach? What's the question? Motzi amalahu. Could we say that the owner could tell them, wait a second, when did I transfer the rights of the kefil? It was to your father, the abedli nichanavshi, that he did me favors many times. He did me a favor. He watched this for me. He did this for me. So therefore I said, you know what? If you're going to admit the principle to me, I'll give you the ability for the kefil. But for you guys, I don't give you guys pay. You guys don't get that favor. Maybe there's no difference. There's still the heirs of the father. Maybe if they pay also, they would get the same benefits. Another question. Shilim lebanim. What happens if the owner of the object died and it was stolen? So the shomer says to the sons of the owner, I'll pay, or he pays. What's the halacha? What's the question? The Gemara explains. Matzu Amrle, could they tell him, Ki aknilach avuna kefela, when our father transferred for you the rights of the kefil, was the avitalei naich nafshe, because you did him favors during his lifetime. But to us, you never did any favors. We don't owe you that favor of being maknit to you the kefil. No, there's no difference because ultimately they're the heirs of the father, and the father is the one who would be maknit the kefil. Another question: Shomu banim libanimai. What's the halacha if there's no element of favors over here for anyone that was alive? Because not them nor their father did a favor to these heirs, and not the father of these received any favors from the sons of the shomer, because it's just the sons to the sons, meaning both fathers passed away. Or do you say that no, since the two original guys did favors for each other, so the owner is makna the kefil even by banim min habanim. Another question is shilem mechza. What happens if he paid up half? Meaning, in the beginning he said, look, I'll pay up half and not more. What's the halacha? Would he acquire half the kefil? And now Rashi explains, if you say that, no, you cannot acquire half because it's not the whole thing, but what happens if shol shtei pachas? What happens if the guy borrowed 2 cows, they were both stolen, v'shilim achas men. On one of them he says, I'm going to pay, and he didn't say that it died because of the work, meaning I'm going to admit, I'm going to pay this one. What's the halacha? Would you acquire the kefil of that animal? Do we say, since it's a whole cow that he's paying for, he's going to acquire? Or maybe that you say, no, since both of them were one pekadin, and you're not paying for both of them, so he's not going to be maknat him the kefil because ultimately he's losing through him and he's not paying for the whole thing. Another question, what happens if shalman hashutfin? What happens if you borrow from partners? B'shilim la'achad men, you pay to one of the partners his portion, which is half the monetary value. Now, what's the halacha to acquire his portion that would be coming to him? Do we say that he paid him his whole principal? No, or maybe you need until you pay the entire cow. Another case, shutfin sheshalu. What happens if partners borrowed something? B'shilim echad mehen, and one of the partners paid up his half that he has to pay for. What's the halacha? Would he acquire half the kefil? Do we say that, look, whatever is his responsibility, he paid up? Or do you say, no, lamaisa, they didn't pay up for the whole cow? Another question is, shalom in the isha. If someone borrowed from a woman a cow of her nichse milug. Nichse milug are certain assets that the principal belongs to the woman, but the payers, the utility, the produce belongs to the husband. So someone borrowed the cow from the woman, the shilem, and he paid up the cow labala to her husband. What's the halacha? Would he acquire the kefil? In other words, do we say that since the principal does not belong to the husband, so that's not a bona fide payment, and therefore does not acquire the kefil? Or maybe since the husband is the caretaker on the assets and he consumes the payers, so he is considered the bailam, and they would be considered as a tashlumin. Which that's how Rashi explains. Tais explains a little bit different. He finds this challenging. He says that different interpretations of what this means. But that's how Rashi explains this case of you're paying back to the husband, and the husband is the caretaker. Would that be considered as a valid payment? Another case, isha shishala. If a woman borrowed for the purposes of her property, meaning she owns this karka milug, it's her. The husband gets to eat the payas, but it's her karka milug. She borrows for the purposes of her karka, and v'shilam bala, and the husband pays back. What would the halacha be? Would it be considered as a valid payment because, again, he's the caretaker of our property, and therefore would be considered him or not? So the Gemara take a little stance. It's not clear regarding all these questions what the halacha is, if these would be cases that the owner would be making a kefil or not. Now, Rav Huna. Rav Huna says, he's going on the halacha of the Mishnah, that even though a person pays, the Mishnah said that shilim v'leirotza lishava. He said if a guy pays and he doesn't want to swear, okay, he's going to get the kefil. Rav Huna qualifies, however, mashbina isay shvua, but we still make him take a certain oath. What? That's not in his possession. So my timer, isn't he paying for it? Why does he have to swear it's not in his possession? Kashina, we're concerned, maybe he laid eyes on this item and he really wants to keep it for himself. He's like, you know what, I'll pay for it. Oh, of course you're going to pay for it because you wanted this painting, you wanted this thing. So therefore you're going to pay for it. No, you have to swear that's not in your possession, and then you can pay for it. And then you'll get the kefil or whatever it is. Now, Meis v'Gemara, however, asks by Mishnah Masechta Shavuos. Mishnah says, "Hamalva es chaverei ala mashkin." Someone lends his friend money on security. So the guy says, "Here, I'll lend you $1,000, but you got to give me something to hold on to, security, collateral." So the guy gives him his bike that he goes bike for chayfo, expensive bike. He says, "Here, hold on to my bike." Then the lender was clumsy. He doesn't remember where he put the bike, whatever, and it's lost now. So it gets a little bit confusing. We get a bunch of different cases over here. So he tells him like this. Look, I lent you a sella on this bike that you gave me. Now, shekel ha'yeshava, the bike itself was only a half a sella. The lender is saying that, look, I lent you $1,000. The bike was worth $500. I lost your bike. So essentially saying, you owe me $500. That's like the equivalent of a sella I lent you, and your item was worth only a shekel. Aloy Malloy, the bar says, no, it's not the case. Yeah, you lent me a sella on that security, and sell ha'yeshava. My bike was worth the same amount. It was worth $1,000, the same amount that you lent me. So says the Brisa, says the Mishnah, Shvu is potter. The borrower is exempt from swearing because there's no Bava Metzia. He's not admitting to any partial. He's totally denying the claim of the lender. The lender's claiming for some money. Says, I don't owe you anything because what you're asking for, you already lost. Because my item, that my mashkin, was worth the same amount as the loan. That's one case. Case number two. Yeah, exactly. What was it worth? Exactly. Was the bike worth 1,000? Was it worth 500? That's what they're disagreeing about, and therefore that he's claiming you owe me 500. He's claiming I don't owe you anything. What? Right? He's claiming it's worth the same amount. That's case number one. Case number two. The lender again says, I lent you a seller on your mashkin. Shekel ha'yeshava. It was only worth a shekel. Again, the lender saying the same thing as in the first case here, but the bar says differently over here. The bar says, no, it's not true. You let me a seller on it. And shleisha dinarim ha'yeshava. It was worth 3 dinarim, which 3 dinarim meaning a seller is 4 dinarim. He's saying, it's not like you're saying it was 2 dinarim, and that I owe you 2. There's actually 3 dinar. So, now he has to swear that that's how much it was worth, and then he only pays him the dinar that he's admitting to because he's a Bava Metzia. The guy's claiming you owe me 2. You say I only owe you 1. So that's what's called when you admit to part of the claim. That's the famous shvu in the Torah of Bava Metzia. You got to swear on. You got to pay the one that you're admitting to, and you got to swear on the other one that you don't owe it. Fine. Now it goes the other way around. Now it goes. If the borrower says to the lender, "Selahu visani alav," you lent me on my collateral that a value of a seller, and beis ha'yeshava, the borrower is claiming from the lender, he's taking him to court for the excess amount of his bike, because as Rashi explains, this Tana holds that when someone lends on a mashkin, the lender is a shem esacher. He, as the Gemara discusses later on the pay, that the lender is like a paid custodian. He's getting some value out of this, as we'll see over there. So you're chai for gniv aveda, the lender, for watching this pekadon, for watching this mashkin, and guess what? You lent me only 1,000. This bike was worth 2,000. So he's claiming you lost my bike. Not only do I not owe you, you owe me, is what the bar is saying. The lender is saying no. I lent you a seller and sell ha'yeshava. We're even. I don't owe you anything because the bike was worth exactly the amount that I lent you. Okay, Pater, the lender is exempt from oath again because there's no admission that he owes him anything because he's saying I don't owe you anything. He's totally denying the claim. Now, the fourth case, seller ha'visani alav. Let's say the borrower says, "Look, you let me a seller on this security," and shnaim ha'yeshava. Again, he's saying the same thing as in the previous case, and it was worth 2. You owe me now. And the lender says, no, you only lent me a seller, meaning I lent you a seller and hey dinar harishaba. So he's admitting to 1 dinar that he owes him because a seller is 4 dinarim, and the Malva is agreeing. He says, it's not what you're saying that it was double the amount. It wasn't 8 dinarim. It was only 5 dinarim. Okay, so the chayiv, so he's chayiv a shvur. Now this is where it gets a little bit difficult to read. Says the Brisa, says the Mishnah. Okay, mi nishba, who swears? And the simple translation would be that it sounds like if it's going in the last case it just said, which the Gemara is going to ask on, mi shepakot netzloi, the one that the deposit is by. Who is it by? It's by the lender. The deposit, which is the security, is by the lender. And why does he swear? Shemi yishal bezeh, because if we let the borrower swear for how much it was worth, so then the lender is going to take out the deposit and he's going to invalidate the borrower. He's say, you liar. Because look, here's the bike, I do have it, and let's take it to the assessors, and they're going to show you that you're lying. It's only worth 5 dinar and not the 8 that you claim. That's what the Mishnah is saying. That's why the lender swears and not the borrower. That's how it sounds like. But the Gemara jumps in right away and asks, wait a second. Ahai, exactly on which case are you telling me this halacha of min nishbav, who swears? Ilem ha-seifa, if it's on the last thing we just said, of that there's a chiyuv of shvua, which we said that the borrower was claiming it was worth double the security, and the lender's like, not double, slow down. I lent you 4 dinar, it was worth 5 dinar. Well, you 1 extra dinar. So you tell me that the lender swears because if we would let the borrower swear, then we would run into trouble with, he'll get caught, red-handed that he was lying, right? But what do you mean? But typically the shvuga b'malvahi. Score in the last case. What do you mean? It's on the lender because we always know that the defendant is the one he's the one who takes the oath. Why do I have to say that maybe the cause he's going to take out the bekadon, he's going to invalidate the borrower for testimony and for oath? What does that mean? He's the one who swears because he's the one who swears because he's the one who's denying the claim. So Elam B'Shmuel, rather Shmuel says, you're right, it must be going aresha, on the resha. Says, wait a second, my aresha. If it's going the resha, like the first case, we said 4 cases. The first case was actually a case of Potter. That was when he was denying the whole claim, the borrower. So the Gemara says, no, aseifa the resha. Meaning there was 2 cases by the borrower denying, and there's 2 cases by the lender denying. In the last case of the resha, when we said that the borrower is going to be chayiv, that's where we said this halacha. Because what was the case? The case was selah b'sichalav. The lender says to the borrower, look, I lent you a seller on this security. And shekel yishava, I know I lost your security, but it was only worth half of how much I lent you. And the borrower said, no. Yes, you let me a seller on my security. It was worth only 3 dinar. So he's admitting to 1 extra dinar, but he's denying the other dinar. Oh, says the Mishnah, chayiv, he's liable for a shvua. Now here the truth is, says the Gemara, the shvua gabalaybahu. Really, the shvua belongs by the borrower. That's what the Rabban say, lishtabeya malva. The lender should swear that it was only worth a shekel, and he'll take a shekel. Now, since there's a shvua on the loiva min ha-Torah, you cannot exempt him without anything. But because of tikkun olam, that we don't want a Jew to be invalidated, because, as the Gemara says, shema yishava zeh. If we're going to let the borrower swear, which is he's the one who's supposed to swear, remember the lender is the one who has the security. He's a liar because I do have it, and he pulls it out and he says, "Look, we all can see how much it's worth." So therefore, they took the oath away from the borrower and they put on the lender. Taisus does not like this at all. Rabbeinu Tam says, because what do you mean? Then for sure we should have the borrower swear that he should swear the truth. Why would you do that? Like to take it away? We don't have to get him caught. Forget. Let him make him swear. So he says, we're going to make a takana, make it for that. We don't want the guy to be caught in his lies. And he says, and if you could say maybe because the mashkin might get ruined after that, and then they're going to spread rumors, even though he really swear truth. He says, no, that's not the case. So therefore, actually brings a different interpretation from the Rabbeinu Chananel, that actually the problem is only because it looks like a shvul batala. It just looks like it was done in vain. Because if he's going to pull it out, then you really had it. Then we really didn't have to do an oath. And it's a genai for the one who swears, where it's going to be verified afterwards that the malva really had it. So therefore, that's why. Therefore, he put the oath on the malva. He's not going to swear until he knows that he can't find it. So that's really the problem about it's just going to look like you made for nothing. Look, we had it already. Well, you made an oath, whatever. Okay, so that's different interpretation. But this again, we brought in this whole Mishnah. Really, it's a very complicated Mishnah just to read, but we only brought it in as a question. Says the Gemara to conclude the question. Ve'im, as we continue to talk, if it's Isal of Rav Huna, if we hold of Rav Huna, that the shomer that pays the money, he also has to swear that it's not in his possession. That was the whole point of we brought this all in. So why are we concerned that the lender is going to take it out, and therefore we don't make the borrower swear, but kivin the mishtabeya malva? You're telling me that the lender, who again we're considering him as a shomer sachar, the guy who's watching the security, the lender, you're telling me he has to swear she'ein birshusai, that is not in his possession, how could he go ahead and take it out, which was the whole reason you're concerned for not having the baris with, but he's not going to take it here. He swore that he doesn't have it. That's the question on Rav Huna. So Amar Rabba says, Sheyesh edim shenisrafa. No, there are witnesses that saw it, that it was burnt. Where now we don't make him swear because he already brought witnesses that it was burnt. So he doesn't have to swear. So Gemara said, wait a second. If he brought witness that was burnt, forget about the shvua, mechamaisila. Where exactly is the lender bringing this bike from, or whatever it is, the security? If he brought witnesses that was burnt, that's why you're not concerned, then that's because he's not making a shvua, but there's Eidim already. So Elam Rav Yisrael says a different shot. Shesh Eidim shenigneva. He brought witnesses that it was stolen. And so therefore, we don't make him swear, because what are we swearing? He has witnesses that were stolen. But then it's going to say mechem ma'isela. So wait, exactly is he bringing it from? That we are concerned that we don't have the borrower swear, because the lender might produce it. But didn't he say aren't there witnesses that were stolen already? Says the Gemara, yeah, but the Torah ma'isela. We're concerned that after the borrower is lying, he's going to put in the effort and he's going to go to try to find who had entered into his house, and he's going to find who was the ganav. So even though he had witnesses that were stolen, he'll find the ganav, he'll get the item, and he'll validate the borrower, and for that we're concerned for. So the Gemara says, wait a second, if that's the case, they have the question the other way too. So now you tell me that the lender swears, the borrower is going to be convinced that the lender's lying. He's going to put in the effort. He's going to find out who went and stole it, and he's going to disprove him. So what are you gaining? The Gemara, no. We can understand the lender. He knows who came in and out of his house. So also with Torah he's going to be able to go through the effort, and he's going to find out Lamaisa who stole it, and he's going to bring it. And he's going to be able to disprove and disqualify the borrower, and we don't want that to happen, so therefore we have the lender swear. But the borrower, you think he knows who came in the house, and we're not going to he's going to find out who the gun is, and therefore we have the lender swear and not the borrower. That's how Rav Yisrael explains it. It's not difficult. Abaya Omer, he says, for all situations, he says the truth is that it's a gezerah, it's a rabbinic decree. Shema yitoin, maybe the lender is going to claim the yoim aloy, and he's going to tell him, achashvu mitzasiyah. You're right, he's going to swear falsely that it's ein b'shusay, and then he's going to claim that he found the item after he made the shvua, and then he's going to disqualify him. So therefore, because of that, that's why we don't want the borrower to be swearing at all, even though the lender is swearing. That's how he answered the question. It's not difficult in Rav Huna. Yeah, he does swear, but we're still concerned that he's lying and that he's going to produce it afterwards to disqualify him. So that's why. A third approach, Rav Shloimy says, actually, it's zen nishba v'zen nishba. You're right. It's not difficult in Rav Huna. In other words, zen nishba. You're right. Like Rav Huna said, first the lender swears she'eni b'shuzah, because again he's a shema pekadon, which mashkin, and Rav Huna said that even though he could pay and whatever this and that, but he has to swear first. That's not in possession. You're right. He does swear. V'zeh. And then the borrower swears what's on him. Nish become a hayashava. He actually does swear how much it's worth. Meaning, like the halach is, as the simple understanding would be. This is what the Mishnah is saying in Shavuos. Minish betchila. The Mishnah is not saying we're switching who's supposed to swear. The second case of the four cases, which the borrower is supposed to swear, he does swear. The Mishnah is just saying who swears first. Malva nish betchila, first, and it's actually saying Rav Huna's halacha. The lender swears first that's not in his possession. Shem yishav, because maybe if he didn't swear first, maybe the borrower would swear, and the lender would take out the deposit. So to avoid that, he first swears, which Rav Huna is teaching, and then the borrower goes and swears his regular. Those are three different ways of resolving Rav Huna thing to any time.